Hello, everybody.
All right.
Now we can begin. Go ahead, Trena.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about conflict resolution within your group when you're working on a project. So first, how do I set this to whole slides? Yeah, there we go. So I hope everybody can see this. All right, Kris, it's not letting me switch the slide. So I guess you're going to have to rotate the slides. Hello?
Here we go.
Okay, there we go. All right. So as Kris said, she's Kris, and she's providing technical assistance and support. And I'm Trena, and I'm providing a training. Oh, Kris, hold on 1 second. I meant to turn that other phone off.
This is recording, by the way.
Probably somebody that's not being able to get into the webinar. Are you guys still there? Okay. So today we're going to be talking about conflict resolution. Okay, it's still not letting me flip slides, Kris. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the goal for this training is to learn some tips and tools and coping strategies to help reduce conflict so your group can work together to complete your projects. Now, what is a project?
Yeah.
And how does a project come to be?
Okay.
To start with, a dream becomes a goal when action is taken towards achieving that goal, towards that dream. And then a goal becomes a project when people take action together to work on a goal. Then it becomes a project. So a dream, one person may be involved. Like I had the dream years ago to do public speaking and worked on it a while, took some college classes on speaking in public, and didn't really get very far with it because there's not a lot of money out there to pay people to speak, unfortunately, or I couldn't get into the right circles. So then a group of my friends got together and said, well, we're going to help you work on this goal of yours. And so now it became a project. So the project got started. We were able to get a grant. And so next year we're going to be I'm going to do 14 trainings in the next year. So there's just kind of the way a dream flows into a goal, flows into a project. And the idea here is that it takes a bunch of people to work on it together. You can't just do it by yourself. And so, but when you put a bunch of people together, you end up getting a lot of conflict because everybody has their own personality, everybody has their own dreams, everybody has their own ideas on what the group needs to do. And so one of the tools to help your group avoid conflict and deal with conflict is to have goal setting. Now, we could spend an entire hour talking about goal setting and about how to make SMART goals. In fact, we did a webinar last year on how to make SMART goals. So that little picture there in the center is to remind you all that you can go online and you can look at a whole webinar training on SMART goals. And, okay, Kris, oh, there we go. Whoop, it went to now. Okay, so this webinar today, though, is not on SMART goals. This webinar is on conflict and conflict resolution. So what is conflict? conflict, very simply put, is a condition that exists anytime two or more people disagree over an issue or a situation. So anytime you have more than one person there, you might have some conflict because everybody's their own individual person. We all have our own ideas. We have our own thoughts on what will work and what won't work. And there are no right or wrongs. With that, it's just differing opinions. Nobody's opinion is ever better than any other person's opinion. Recognizing that is another tool to prevent conflict, that everybody's opinion is valued and has some validity to it. So we know what conflict is, so what is conflict resolution? Well, conflict resolution, very simply put, means we're going to stop fighting about our differences and we're going to start talking about ways to solve them. So there's what conflict is in a nutshell. Now, this is another one of those slides that I could spend an entire hour talking about, and we're going to run across several of these in the next hour. So these slides will be available, and I believe they're already available on the website, aren't they, Kris?
They will be available.
Okay. So they will be posted on the website shortly after the training today, so you can go back and review them. Because every one of these things listed in this pyramid here in the center is extremely important. But the only one that we're going to really have time to talk about today is the conflict issue. And so this pyramid tells you there's 5 different things that can help kill your project. And if you focus on these 5 things, then your project has a better chance of being strong. You know? So they're there. You can look at them later. This other little graphic here in the corner about the 2 hands, one is an ear and one is a mouth. You know, the old saying, talk to the hand because I'm not listening to you, is one of those things that can kill a project. You know, you have to be available to listen to everybody's point of view. But the one thing on conflict that we're going to deal with on this slide is the fear of conflict. So fear of conflict occurs with individuals and it occurs with groups. First, we're going to look at what fear is. Well, fear is the path to the dark side, Yoda says. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. Now, nobody likes to suffer, and nobody likes to be angry, and nobody likes to have people hate them, but fear kind of causes a lot of that stuff. So we have a tendency to avoid conflict. Okay, teams and groups that fear conflict, they kind of have a lot of things in common. They have boring meetings. They encourage what they call back channel politics and personal attacks. Because I don't have the courage to speak up in the group, I'm going to talk to my best friend after the meeting and complain to them instead of talking about the problem and solving the problem in the group. You know, so I'm going to go talk to this person, and then later on I'm going to go talk to this other person, you know, because I'm bothered by something that happened in the group, but I didn't address it in the group because I'm scared of conflict, right? So they have that in common. The group fails to take consideration of all opinions. So if the group is afraid of conflict, usually one person ends up leading the meeting. That's kind of why it's boring. Because it's just one person up there at the front of the meeting, talk, 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 talk. Kind of a lot like this webinar right now. Which reminds me, at any time during the webinar, if you have any questions or comments or need any clarification please raise your little hand and let us know that you need help. Kris, as part of her technical job, she's watching for those hand raises. So please don't be afraid to raise your hand if you have something to say or add into this presentation, because there are no rights and wrongs. So groups that avoid conflict, having taken that little bird walk, I'll get back on track. They ignore or avoid controversial topics, things that cause them to be uncomfortable. And they waste a whole lot of time and a whole lot of energy on trying to solve interpersonal risk problems. Now, the opposite of that are groups and teams that engage in conflict. They have interesting meetings. They have face-to-face confrontations. That makes their meetings interesting. There's more than just one person talking. It's a give and a take. They extract and explore the ideas of all members of the group. So it's not just one person's idea what would be a good thing to do, and then everybody goes and does it. We have a term for a group like that. It's called a dictatorship. It's all my way and none of your way. We have groups that are not afraid to engage in conflict, can talk about critical topics. You know, they can put the issues on the table and they can say, well, you know, I'm confused about this. I'm concerned about this. I'd like to teach, you know, a class. A great example of that is a sex ed class. There's a lot of controversy around sex education training. So, you know, the group may talk about things like that. And because they're open and honest and talking face to face, they minimize the politics and the backdoor complainers. And they solve their problems relatively quickly. They don't hide in the background and fester from meeting to meeting. Avoiding vulnerable feelings because you are afraid of them is an irrational fear. Come on, they're just feelings. Courage is facing up to your uncomfortable feelings. Now, I personally believe that people in self-advocacy groups and people in people first groups are very courageous people. As a general rule, we look forward to the challenges of life. You know, we're all not just sitting at home being couch potatoes. We're out experiencing our lives and we're taking risk, and that's a good thing. And one of the benefits of conflict is that you learn to take risk. You learn the value in risk taking. And you learn a lot of other important skills that are talked about on this slide. Personal confidence, learning how to be open and honest, learning the art of negotiation, learning the art of decision making, learning the art of communication, building rapport with people. These are all really important skills that you learn when you face conflicts. So this is me giving you a tip to encourage you to face your uncomfortable feelings, deal with them, and you're going to grow because of it. You know, if you avoid something, it doesn't cause you to grow. You know, if you fear something, you know, Yoda told us a few minutes ago what fear did. Fear is the path to the dark side. It leads to anger. Hate, it leads to suffering. And I know nobody wants to suffer. Okay, so the next slide is about personality traits. And this is where we have to kind of take a look inside instead of, it's real tempting to look outside. When you're talking about personalities that cause conflict, it's very easy to say, yes, I know a drama queen. Yep, I know one. Trena, now she's a real drama queen. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. So it's easy to look at other people and identify these traits. People who are aggressive, people who are passive, people who are absentees. They're sitting there in the room, but they're not going to take any involvement at all. You know, there's usually a reason that people get like that, though. And we're going to cover that on another tip. Some of these behaviors are caused by things that happen. You know, the time waster, the resentful person, the person who's unreliable, person who's afraid to do anything, will just do nothing in the group. The person who's made so many errors and mistakes and they've been embarrassed and had their errors and mistakes pointed out to them to the point where they don't want to open up and suggest anything at all because somebody's going to find something wrong with it. And then you have the person who covers everything up by just chattering and not really saying anything. And, you know, that's a big time waster, and there are other time-wasting things. But these behaviors and personality traits all occur for a reason. You know, there's some underlying issues that cause this type of behavior, like most behaviors. So, but it helps not to look at other people, though, and point fingers at other people. To really be effective at avoiding and eliminating conflict and dealing with conflict in your life and in your projects, you need to take a look inside yourself. You need to take a real deep look inside. The page is not turning. Okay. What's in your way inside you? Down here in the corner, there's a roadblock. It says self-evaluation is a good thing. What's inside you that's stopping you? Which one of those characteristics exist in your life? Instead of pointing the finger at somebody else, you know, point it to yourself and take a look at yourself and see. And then there's a few other things that we need to avoid that are just quite simply time wasters. The blame game. It's her fault it didn't work. It's his fault it didn't work. Hey, they're the ones at fault. It wasn't me. I didn't mess up. You know, we need to avoid the blame game altogether because nobody wins and everybody gets hurt. People who make mistakes, you know, when you've been the victim of the blame game, this is where these behaviors come in at later. You know, you start using these personality traits. You become aggressive or passive or absentee or negative attitude because you've been blamed in the past that something was your fault. Whether it was or not, it wasn't, doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter whose fault anything is. The fact is something happened and it needs to be, number one, be fixed, and number two, move on. So don't look to share blame or point fingers, because anytime you're pointing your finger at somebody, you got three fingers pointing back at yourself. So just, you know, cut your losses, say, okay, this didn't work out. How can we fix it? Where do we go from here? Let's build on this, and let's go forward. Whoa, it just like jumped 3 slides ahead. Are you messing with those, Kris?
I think I made a mistake, but we can just go on.
Okay. That's all right. You know, see, mistakes happen. They really do. Another game that you need to avoid is, yes, this cute little kitty over here, he says, yes, we've reached an understanding. What I say goes. This will kill your group. If everybody in the group takes the attitude that what I say goes, then you're all going to be going 90 different directions, and the project's not going to get done. You have to come to more mutual understanding than it's all my way, because that's not a compromise. And as people with developmental disabilities, many times in life, we are asked to compromise. And many times in life, it turns out to be that we're the only one that's compromising. There's no give and take in the compromise. It's all the other person's way. And usually, so we need to try to avoid that within our groups. A compromise means simply you get something, I get something, the group gets what they need to be successful. It's like not everybody gets the same thing, but the group gets what it needs to be successful. Okay. Another big time waster and problem within groups and group dynamics is this little guy who's got his fingers in his ears yelling at everybody, they won't listen to me, they won't listen to me, but they won't listen to me. And in reality, he's listening to nobody. You know, so the golden rule is a good rule for groups. Do unto others the way you want to be treated. So he's kind of gold there to remind us of that. So it really kind of, conflict resolution becomes a question of a balance. It really does. We have to balance our lives and we have to balance our relationships. But I'm going to stop here for a second and see if we have any questions.
We'll give everybody a couple of minutes to either type in their questions, or you can click the little hand button to raise your hand and verbally ask your question.
And I'd love for you to verbally ask your question, because I got this new headphone that's got a speaker on it, and I'd like to know if they're working. So don't be afraid to ask a question or make a point, you know?
Renee, you have been unmuted. I think you had your hand raised.
Hey, Renee.
Hi.
How's it going, sir? How's it going, Renee? What was your question? Oh, talk to me, Renee. What's up? Did we lose Renee?
Renee, did you have a question?
Oops.
Come on, Renee. Don't be shy. Is this Renee Rodriguez?
Yes, it is. Renee, if you're not ready to answer your question, we can come back to you if you would like. So I can move on to a different person.
Okay, Renee, I'll talk to you in a few minutes then. I hope you find your voice. Hello?
Okay. Oh, Renee just typed in that Renee is having some trouble. So let's move on to does anybody else have any questions? Now, Renee, if when you are ready to answer your question, feel free to raise your hand again or type it into the question box. So let's keep going, Trena.
Okay. Okay, so, if Renee doesn't answer his question, get his question answered now, he will call me later. I have no doubt. Yes, Renee, this is me giving you a hard time, just like you give me sometimes. Okay, so our next slide talks about how conflict resolution is a question of balance. Because you can be assertive and you can be aggressive. And where's the drawing line between the two? You can be unassertive and you can be uncooperative. And where's the drawing line between enough is enough? When do you cross being assertive with being aggressive? The side thing here, I hope you can all see my arrows, talks about being unassertive to assertive. There's a timeline here that goes up the side. And beyond assertive is aggressive, although it doesn't actually say aggressive. But it's a balance between how far is too much. And a lot of it sometimes depends upon the other person that you're talking to. Because what you may see as assertive, somebody else may see as aggressive. And likewise, what you're seeing as aggressive, they may see as them just trying to advocate to get their needs met. So there's a little bit of a gray area there where you have to ask people sometimes, look, are you trying to be assertive or are you trying to be aggressive? Because right now your body language is telling me that you're being aggressive. And I want to clarify it. If you're not afraid of confrontation and you can have that dialogue with somebody, that clues them in with the fact that, well, their hands are crossed and they're looking pretty aggressive right now, and they may even be upset. But maybe they don't mean to be aggressive. Maybe they're just trying to be assertive. So they can explain it to you a little bit. So on the bottom we have uncooperative versus cooperative scale. And so if you look in the corner, if you're unassertive and uncooperative, the behaviors that you're going to be exhibiting are avoidance behaviors. These are the people who sat in the meeting and they're afraid to commit to doing anything because they've been told so many times in the past that they're wrong. And they're afraid to speak up because they've been told so many times in the past that their ideas had no merit and were not valuable. Somebody may have even used the word stupid to them, which is not really true. There's no such thing as a stupid question or a stupid idea except for one that doesn't get voiced. I heard that once. Okay, so you have your avoidance, and then on the other side of cooperative, you have too accommodating. Now, is it possible to be too accommodating when you're working on a project in a group? Absolutely too accommodating. That's the, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this, I'll take care of that, I can handle that, I can do this. And pretty soon you're a group of one doing everything, and everybody else is sitting back. Oh, we have no control. We have no responsibilities. Oh, we don't have to worry about a thing because our facilitator's taking care of all of it. Right? Even if the person taking care of it isn't a facilitator, you become the facilitator because you're doing it all. So it's possible to carry the whole world on your shoulders, like this picture, and be too accommodating. The opposite side, up in the other corner, the red box, talks about collaborating. And how if you're collaborating, you're both working together. Now, this is kind of a good place to be. Collaboration is a good thing. You know, they're all, yay, we're successful, we've done it, we've worked together. Where we really want to be, though, is not next door over here by assertive and uncooperative, because being assertive and uncooperative means you're competing. So we want to try to avoid competing with each other and try to work together. All right, the collaborating is the better place to be. But the perfect spot, the sweet spot, is when you're all working together and you're compromising and you're collaborating and you're accommodating and you're all getting it all done and things are running smoothly because you're compromising. That's our sweet spot. That's where you really want to be when you're working on a project, is in that center. You're assertive, but you're not too assertive. You're cooperative, but you're not too cooperative. You know, you're sharing the workload. You're all doing it together. Everybody has small goals, and they're getting them done and sharing the work. Okay, this is another one of those slides that, let me check the time here. Do we have any hands up yet? No?
No hands up yet. Let me check for questions. Okay, Renee just asked his question. He asks, are you going to email the presentation? We will be, this webinar is being recorded, and in a couple of weeks we will be posting it onto the website, the pacific-alliance.org website. So check back in a couple of weeks and it should be there.
That was a really good question, Renee. I'm glad you asked that question, because I know that you're having trouble getting on the Pacific Alliance webpage. You and I have talked about it before, and Paul was going to help you log on to that. So if anybody else is having difficulty getting on the Pacific Alliance page, because there's a lot of good resources there, you know, not only the old webinars that we have done in the past, but there's a lot of other resources. There's the bulletin board, which is an absolutely awesome tool for groups to share ideas about their project and to get assistance and support for their projects. But some people do have a little bit of difficulty getting on that website because, for a variety of different reasons, it's not really user-friendly if you don't read too well. And there's a lot of letters that you have to type in, and there's dash in the middle of the web that you have to put. Can't be down too low. It's got to be in the right spot. But please don't hesitate to ask a support person or a friend or one of your group members to help you with that if you're having trouble. Okay, I want to encourage everybody to try to log on to that at some point just to keep track of what's going on. Also, the speakers pool is on there. So those of you who are interested in doing public speaking events, there's a form on there that you can fill out. And for those of you who are in conference planning mode this year, because I know it's time, there's a spot on the bulletin board if you don't have a speaker to go and look at the speaker pool and find somebody if you're looking for a particular topic. I know one of the groups just used it recently. They got a grant to offer a new training at their conference, and they didn't have a particular person in mind to do the training. So they went on the speakers pool and looked it up. And that was kind of cool. Okay, so to get on with this, our next slide says 10 tips for keeping focus on the project, not on the conflict. And I think we probably have time to go through a few of these. Don't you think, Kris?
You can get through a couple of them.
Yeah, because we're doing pretty good on time. I'm not giving you guys as many breaks as I anticipated doing when I wrote the presentation. Or I'm just being motor mouth and going way too quick. So one of the tips when there's a conflict in your group is to choose a good time and a place to talk about the conflict. You know, in the middle of a training is probably not a good time or place to talk about a disagreement that happened or that's about a different topic. You know, it's a good idea if you choose the time and place where both people have time to talk and it's far enough away from the event so that they're not still really, really angry. And you have enough time to talk about it, to find a solution. And when you start talking about it, commit to finding a solution that satisfies the project goals for the group. You know, that kind of draws you back to where the group is and what the group is intentioning, you know, what they hope to accomplish. Those goals can help minimize conflict. Listen carefully and restate what you've heard within the project, within the conflict. So if a person is complaining about something, you know, listen carefully to them, make sure that you understood them. So you can say things like, I understood that this is what you're trying to say. Works great. Okay, hold on just a second. Okay. Talk about the issues, not the people. And I'm jumping down a couple here because this just came up this morning with somebody that I was talking to. They're like, well, I want to be a part of that group over there, but there's some people in that group that don't like this person over here, so I'm not going to be involved with that. You know, you have to look at the issues, not the people. It's not the people or their behaviors, but the issues that you want to focus on, the positives, not so much the negatives. And then acknowledge areas of agreement. That probably didn't make too much sense. Find common ground. Find the places that you do agree to start building on cooperating and collaboration. And being open to finding creative solutions. If you close your mind to any ideas, are you going to find the answer to the problem? And if you've decided that there's only one solution, you're not going to be open to other solutions. So remain flexible. It's not what's best for you. It's not what's best for me. It's what's best for the project and the group that is important. Now, this is, I just changed the slide and this really cool graphic across the top that says, don't be hot and blow up. Don't be cold and give up. Be cool and in control. Now, this is another one of those things that's really kind of a prompt there to get you more support. There is this program, this training program called the Be Cool series. And for anybody who hasn't been through the Be Cool training, there's 4 different modules, and each module has 4 or 5 different parts in it. It talks about one module talks about how to deal with anger. Another one talks about how to deal with criticism. Another one talks about how to deal with conflict. And the other one talks about how to deal with bullying. And one talks how to deal with criticism. And the premise behind these trainings is that if you respond in anger, you're going to cause the situation to blow up in any given situation. If you respond by being cold, then there's going to be certain other things happen. And then the idea is to be cool and be in control and be successful. So there's videotapes with it, or DVDs, there's role plays, there's all kinds of learning strategies to teach you what it looks like and what it feels like when you're angry.
Trena,
Yes.
excuse me for a second. Renee has a question asking, what website is this Be Cool website?
Okay. The Be Cool series is not on a website. It's a training module that a lot of the area boards have. I know San Diego People First has access to it through Area Board 13. So if you want to schedule one of these trainings, just let me know. They're detailed trainings, so it takes about 8 weeks to get all the way through them. But they're really good if you want to just focus on one module. Like one of our projects, there's a session, or one of our grants that we just gave out, Kris, was on bullying, right?
I don't think we have a grant on bullying specifically.
To prevent bullying? Okay.
No.
I was thinking that we did. Okay. But that might be a good tool to use. But they're really good teaching you how to be aware of your own body and how to be in control of your own emotions so that you don't respond hot or cold. It teaches you what it feels like to go through those emotions through these role plays and stuff. And I find them to be really effective trainings. And then this other big box down here is another training piece that we could spend an entire hour talking about. This is 4 simple steps to resolve a conflict. In huge words, eliminate adversarial contests. That basically means stop competing and work together. Promote the concept of win-win. And that's basically saying that, it's a give and take, and we're going to compromise and both of us win. Follow due process. Following due process is something they do kind of in legal terms. It's a legal term. That means follow the steps that you know work. So if you're going to solve a problem, the first thing you have to do is identify the problem, right? And after you've identified the problem, you might come up with some brainstorming ideas on possible solutions. And then you might try the solutions. You might determine which is the best fit, and you might follow through with that decision as a group. So the fourth one is to allow for solutions that meet all parties' needs. And there again, that's that give and take. You want everybody to compromise, not one winner and everybody else loses. Okay. Do we have any hands up?
We do not have any questions or hands up.
Okay. I hope you guys are getting a little bit of this anyway. It's an awful lot to take in, and I know that, and that's why you're getting the PowerPoints. So it's not my intention to go through every slide in here in detail. It's just my intention to let you know what's available. So, having said that, I think I'm going to pretty much give you a synopsis of this one and not read every single word. This is the stop scenario, where you stop, you think, you observe, and then you proceed. So when you're hit with a conflict, boom, stop, step back, use what they call the helicopter view to see the big picture. And then take a break, take a breath, breathe for a minute, and think. Remember your goals. Remember why you're doing this. Is this battle important to your cause? Or is this something you should just totally ignore? Is there a way to make this confrontation a win-win? What would be a fair compromise? Observe not only what the other person is thinking and doing and feeling and how the other person looks, but think about yourself and what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and what are you telling the person through nonverbal communication. Okay? Now, that gets easier once you've had the Be Cool series and you learn what nonverbal communication looks like and feels, and you can interpret these signs. And then, so, observe, is it a fact? Is it a feeling? Is it both? Is it accurate? Is it inaccurate? Is it helpful? Is what I'm thinking helpful right now? Is this feeling of having my feelings hurt, is this helpful to our group goals? Probably not. So step back, pull back from it, and get perspective. And then proceed. So look at it, kind of like an outsider, kind of observe a little bit. Is there another way of looking at it? How can you make it work? You practice what works, and you always base your decisions when you're working with a group on honoring the group's principles and values. That's why there's so much emphasis paid when you're first starting your groups to what are your principles and what are the values. People first values. San Diego people first values. What are the values of your group? What are the principles that the group stands on? Because those are the things that you don't want to violate when you're making decisions. If your group values open communication, then you want to keep the communication lines open to other people. If your group values being inclusive, do you really want to tell somebody they can't come to a meeting? Probably not. It's probably not in your group's best interest, and can cause your group to have a little bit of problem. Okay, the next slide says, together we can find a meaningful compromises to get our project back on track. Because sometimes projects get off track, and sometimes it's good to evaluate the project halfway through, or If you've had a series of conflicts, you might want to have a meeting and evaluate where we are right now and how can we get our project back on track. You know, you don't know that something is broken and keep using it over and over and over again till you get to the end of your project and say, well, we couldn't do it because we messed up back there and we didn't have the tools at the beginning. We didn't do our groundwork right, and we didn't lay out the steps of the project. So nobody did any advertising. So we did 6 trainings, and there was nobody came to any of the trainings at all. But we still kept having the trainings because that's what we had our grant to do. Well, you got to stop and evaluate along the steps of your project to make sure that your project goals are being met. After one training of nobody in attendance, then stop and look at the way you're advertising the trainings and see if you can try something different. Never be afraid to take a step back and try something different when something doesn't work. That's a really good tool to keep in mind. You know, just like when you're confronted with a problem, sometimes it's better to react with no reaction than to fly off the handle. So the art of communication, again, this is another one of those pages where we could literally do an entire 8-hour training and cover these principles. I know because I went through a training that was 4 hours one day and 4 hours the next day, and this is the card, the bring away that they gave us at the end of the training. We spent 8 hours talking about this card and leading up to this tool. So a keto in action, and there's all kinds of role plays that go with this and everything, simply means that sometimes it's better to have no reaction than to react. You know, actually a keto is a form of martial arts that teaches you how to be a blank wall and how to let go of your ego and how to prepare to listen effectively. And of course, respectfully. You want to respond respectfully in every situation. You know, you're never gonna. It's gonna be hard to be successful if you aren't respectful to the person you're talking to. Anytime you go in a situation where you're showing a lack of respect, it's going to be difficult to be successful. Because if somebody were disrespecting you, you would automatically shut them out and ignore them. Well, everybody kind of does that. You demonstrate understanding and acknowledging and identify the interest that the person has in a conflict. So it's like, I understand that you're upset right now. I understand that your feelings got hurt, that you took this comment personally when they said that they were going to try this a different way. You know, and I understand that you've invested some time and energy into this thought. So let's compromise. Let's come up with things. One of the ways to make sure that you're clearly understanding a situation is to ask open-ended questions. An open-ended question is a question that somebody has to answer with more than just a yes or a no. An open-ended question would be, Kris, do we have any hands raised right now? Are there any questions in the question box? And what should we do about it?
We do not, to answer your question.
Okay. So then we need to just proceed. Am I understanding you correctly?
That is correct.
Okay. So There's an example of how you ask an open-ended question and how you clarify the information that you heard. Telling your perspective in a non-confrontational way is a pretty valuable skill for anybody who's ever dealt with people. You know that if I come at you with my hands crossed, my nostrils flared, my eyebrows raised, and I'm pointing my finger at you, it's a pretty good indication that the next thing I'm going to do is open my mouth and yell at you, right? That would be a confrontational approach. I'm not going to be able to get my needs or my perspective told if I approach you in that way. This particular training works much better when you actually have people together in one room and you can do the role plays. But so maybe you get the idea. Maybe your group can go through this and do some role plays about it. And troubleshoot problems together is what the T stands for in art. So problem solve, ensure everybody's interests are met. We're back to that compromise and make sure everybody gets their values met, you know. And then we want to make sure that we end on a positive note. And if you'd like to take this training, you can contact theexchangetraining.com. They teach a variety of conflict resolution trainings, and this is one of their best ones. It's one of their most in detailed ones, and it's one that they work out for groups at a very, very reasonable rate if you happen to be where the exchange is, which here in San Diego we're blessed that we are. That 2-day training cost me absolutely nothing. The county paid for it because they were working on a particular project for the county. Okay, so now we get to this slide. Open-ended question here for everybody. How many people think this slide is overwhelming? Just raise your hand if you do. Hit that little hand button. Go ahead. It's overwhelming. I know it's overwhelming. In fact, I'll go you one better. I designed it to be overwhelming because one of the tools that I have for you in reducing conflict in your group is to avoid being overwhelmed with your project. Break your task into small pieces and share the jobs, because there's plenty to go around for everybody, and everybody gets more power if they contribute. You know, you don't have any power if you sit back and you're a yes person, and yes, okay. You know, I'll come up with an idea or two, but I'm not going to do any of the work. You know, well, if you don't do the work, you're not going to have too much power. So I have a tool for you that I want you to look at to help you break your projects down into steps. And it's a tool that I first learned just last year at our leadership camp for the Padsa project, and it's called Trello.com. Trello.com. And so basically it's a computer program that you can set up all these little cards on. And it's a project management tool. And I would love to spend 8 hours doing a training on how to work with Trello effectively. But I'm afraid I would need the training first because I'm having a lot of trouble with it. But I am trying to use it right now to plan a powwow, which has nothing to do with any of our projects, but it's interesting the way that you can break the steps down, and then you can assign each little card to a person, and then you can also put a due date on there, and you can set the computer up to give you reminders to check on that progress to see if that's been done. So it helps you track your whole project break it down into little pieces, and how to get it from point A to point B so your project becomes a success. So far, it's working pretty good. There's a few little glitches. A few people are having a little trouble getting a hold of it, figuring out how to input data. But with some support, it can definitely be done. And that might be a task for one of your team members in your group. Is if you're pretty computer literate, or maybe your facilitator can help you set up the Trello to do your teamwork. And then the rest of this big conglomeration on this page is a bunch of little tips and tools on things that will help your projects be successful. But we're not going to pick them apart right now. I'm going to let you do that on your own. And I would kind of suggest, if you're having routine meetings with a group, that you look at your meeting space and see, is there a wall or is there a way that we can display a poster every time we're meeting to help give us a visual clue to stay on topic or to stay on task. If your group is having trouble with staying on topic, we have this thing called a bird walk at San Diego People First, where anytime we're together and we're in our group, we try to either have a whiteboard present or we put a piece of sticky tape board on the wall. And anytime somebody brings up something that is not on topic, we call it a bird walk. And it's like, okay, we're going to put this bird walk in the parking lot because the issue is important usually. It's something that needs to be addressed, but it's not talking about what we're talking about at this moment. So we're going to put it in this parking lot over here. And we're going to come back to it at the end of the meeting and make a determination of whether we want to work on it next meeting or if we want to address it some other way.
Trina?
Yes.
We're running a little low on time, and I want to be able to give people a chance to ask any questions.
That's good, because guess what? The next slide is nothing about us without us. And thank you very much. So do you want to take a minute here while we're still on this slide to go ahead and...
Sure. So if anybody has any questions, click the little hand button if you want to ask your question verbally, or you can type your question into the question box. And so, yeah, let's give people a couple minutes.
Yeah, and we'd also like to have some feedback. I don't know if we want it. I'd like some feedback, because this is only the second webinar that I've actually ever done in my life. And I'd like to know if you found it helpful and any tips that you might have for me. Did I go too fast? Did I present too much information? Did I put you all to sleep? So while you're typing those in, we'll just wait a second. We're not afraid of silence, right?
Robin, I see that your hand is raised. Do you have a question? I will unmute you. Robin, you have been unmuted. Do you have a question? Robin, did you have a question? Okay. If you have, if
can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you. There we go.
Okay, good. I have unmuted. My hand was up because Trina said to raise your hand if that was too much on the slide, but I was typing something. What a very useful training. Loved it. Each slide could be used one at a time for so much conversation, and I love to use it to teach my staff on how to have resolution with participants and advocates and not get into that struggle. So awesome, Trena, I love it.
Absolutely, Robin. Thank you very much for the feedback. The slides are going to be posted. Print them as well. Use it. Use it. Like anything that I've ever produced that I've shared with you. Use it.
Thank you so much for that feedback, Robin.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? Give people about a minute.
I want to mention one other thing while we're waiting for people to give answers to, kind of to call your attention to. Back when I was in social work school 3 years ago, we learned about different syndromes and different ways that people react with other people. And one of them was called this crab in a bucket syndrome. And it's really kind of an interesting idea, is that if you take a bunch of crabs, and the teacher actually did this. She took a bunch of crabs and she put them in a bucket in the center of the room. And none of those crabs were able to crawl out of that bucket. Because every time one of them got to the top, one of the other crabs reached up and pulled him down. Took one crab and put him in a bucket by himself, and he got out and really quick. But when you have a whole bunch of crabs together, they tend to compete with each other and they pull each other back down. So you can't get out of here. You can't succeed because I can't succeed. And that's kind of a mentality that people have, that they're not even aware that they do it. It's kind of like an instinct. And so when people are holding you back and preventing you from succeeding, know that it's not really them doing it, that they don't intend to do it. It's not their intention to keep you down, but their intention is subconsciously to keep us all together. And so that's kind of an anger management thing. Recognizing that can help you keep from getting angry when it happens to you, but it can also help you not take things so personally. Because a lot of conflicts happen when people take things too personally. Even though it is a personal thing, you don't have to take things personally. You can choose. There's a little duck over here in the corner. And he says, your happiness is your business, and their drama is theirs. Let it slide off your heart like water off a duck's back. And so really, and that's the whole purpose behind this little duck on the next slide, is kind of to remind people that you don't have to absorb what's going on around you. You know, a duck sits in water all day long, dives under the water 15,000 times. When he comes up to the top of the water, his feathers are dry. He doesn't absorb the water. And we can be like ducks. We can train ourselves to be like ducks. And it gets much easier the more you do it.
That's very that's very true, Trena. And I don't think we have any other questions.
Okay.
So just in the interest of respecting everybody else's time, I think.
Yes. Oh, we went 5 minutes over. That's good for me.
So yeah.
That's really good for me. I'm giving myself a pat on the back for that. And thank you guys all for coming and listening. And we're glad that you all participated. And now I can't get this last slide to go back. There you go. So once again, with the help of ASON, the Padsa Project, the Pacific Alliance on Disability and Self-Advocacy, we'd like to thank you for participating in this training.
Thank you so much for coming. If anybody wants the slides for this webinar, feel free to email me at kguin, that's KGUIN, at autisticadvocacy.org. And I would be glad to pass the slides along to you. And again, this webinar was recorded, but give us a 2 to 3 weeks to process it and then upload it to the website.
Yeah. Kris, we're going to be sending out an announcement when that's posted, right?
We will be letting people know.
Okay. So you guys keep watching my advocacy page for the announcement that those slides are up and running.
Right.
And that training's up.
Well, thank you all again for coming, and we look forward to the next webinar, which will be on legislative advocacy. So thank you very much, and you all have a good day.